Welcome into the Beat Sessions, the place for all things music and where we do the listening for you. I'm your host, Mitchell Weary. Let's talk about this new album from Graham Nash entitled Now. He released that on May 19th. This is his seventh solo outing and his follow-up to 2016's This Path Tonight. A pretty solid effort from Graham, but kind of a dark affair, as the title might suggest. And it's a record that a lot of people thought would be his swan song. He hadn't put out new music up to that point for 14 years, not since 2002's Songs for Survivors. So his output through his 60s and his 70s, very much the opposite of longtime and late collaborator David Crosby, or Neil Young, or Stephen Stills for that matter. Graham Nash, in the later part of his life, just has not been focused on music, I guess. And so, there's that in mind. There's talk about the darkness of This Path Tonight. He was 74 when that album came out, coming off a separation from his wife of, I think, like 38 years or something like that. And so in a dark place. And if there was a question about it, he talks about this new record Now and how it's probably one of the most personal albums that he's ever put out. And the first track is Right Now. And it leads off with, I used to think I would never love again. I used to think that I'd be all on my own. I really thought that it was coming to an end. And just the thought of it chilled me to the bone. So, if that isn't, insight to where his mindset was, it's, I don't know what is. And so knowing that he was at that place and that he's come out of it, he was remarried back in 2019, being 81 years of age now, that spirit, that fire has been rekindled. And I love it. I love when artists, at this age, at this stage in the game, with nothing left to prove, but, also not wanting to deny their creative sides. It's what they do. It's what he's done for 6 decades. And so it's great to see him take advantage of that and to put out a fun record that captures a lot of things that I think we all love about Graham Nash. Now, before I overhype this thing, because I got in trouble with my Dave review, I'll stand by it though. I think that new record is quite solid. It's a different effort. It's not, full of big old jams like we like from Dave, but I think it's a cool record. This album is not a songs for beginners. This is not a Wind on the Water or a Deja Vu. I'm not going to put it in that category, and not even close. But like I said, finding that spirit and, showing off those things that we love about him, that delicate side of him, songs like Teach Your Children or Our House, there's some of that going on this record, that political side, that angsty side of him that I think is excellent as well. Military Madness, songs like Chicago. We're getting a little bit of that flair on this record. And then, as I said, remarried in 2019. So lots of love songs. And that's where I think this thing got a little bogged down. It almost kind of feels a little mushy, a little sappy at parts. And honestly, I'll level with you. The thing that is really kind of killing me, as much as I love his energy, as much as I love that fire, being rekindled that I talk about, I don't think that the flame is burning quite as hot for me, unfortunately. And that's just where I'm feeling this thing. But, he's teaming up with touring keyboardist Todd Caldwell on this thing. I think it's a great collaboration. I think that, the two of them, for the most part, putting a lot of good stuff together. But I think after 7 years, there could have been some stuff that, I don't know, some songs and some moments where maybe a better track, maybe just, leaving it out. This is it's got a pretty quick runtime. It's 39 minutes with 13 songs. So it's not like there's tracks that are necessarily filler that feel like that, but it's just, like I said, I'm not quite feeling as much energy on this thing as I wanted to, and it's unfortunate. But this thing kicks off with Right Now, which I think has pretty good energy. You can talk about his songwriting lyrically. There's some moments where there's a little bit of cheese. So I like the honesty of those lyrics that I mentioned earlier on, but this song and like a lot of other songs, I think that lyrically there's kind of like a simplicity where, in the past throughout his career, he's been more poetic. He's just not waxing that way on this thing. And it's kind of bumming me out. But that song, your opener Right Now, it's just right in with this classic rock and roll sound. It's got this kind of like outlaw country meets Tom Petty vibe to it, which I appreciate to it. Ominous acoustic guitar. There's layers of electric guitar on this thing. Good mid-tempo groove, little organ that works in on this thing. It's not a bad track to open this thing up. A Better Life is your second song. Light mandolin on this thing ushers in this drum roll, breezy Americana feel. I appreciate the sentiment on this track, the candidness of it, talking about really wanting to leave the world a better place for future generations. And, this is that delicate side of him that I was talking about. And I think that this track is a nice number. I really enjoyed this song. I think the lyrics are spot on. I think the music is great. This is a song that definitely deserves its spot on this record. Golden Idols is your third track. Drum roll opens this thing up. You got the solo roll, and then more of that kind of like moody country flair, kind of rolling off of Right Now. Great organ element on this thing. It's an interesting lyrical performance on this thing. Graham being a little political on this thing, calling out the MAGA and January 6th incident. And I think that even doing so, there's an element of this song that still feels like, yeah, he's calling out the right for their nonsense and their antics, but I feel like there's a level of generality in this song where the left is still being held accountable for really blowing this thing out of proportion. I mean, we should have moved on by now. Honestly, it really has gotten quite ridiculous. And I'm feeling that in a song like Stars and Stripes, your fourth track, which, the political tone of this song is that, hey man, like we've all been bickering quite a bit. And really the only way for this to stop is for all of us to just take a deep breath, maybe grab the olive branch, extend it, and chill out, really. And it's, ultimately at the end, it's really easy for these golden idols, these a-holes, to stir the pot, whether they're on the right or the left. And so it's important for us to not respond. And I think that Stars and Stripes is a song that tackles that, and I think it's a cool track for that reason. I like the simple acoustic riff and the percussion, minimal folk rock here, bass and slide that work in that nice. I like the full percussion when that hits. Get brighter melodies in the coda, in the chorus in this thing. I really like the coda. Certainly worth mentioning there, the end of the song. But it's like the solid little political stretch that you get on this record. And overall, I think it's fairly well done from Graham. Again, nothing that's at that top tier of what he's done in the past, but pretty good. Love of Mine is your fifth song. Simple acoustic intro, has that like pretty kind of like Hawaiian island sort of feel to it. It's a nice harmonica element that works in as well that I enjoyed. It keeps this feel for the whole song. Very chill track. Theme from Pastoral is your sixth song. Got this lush string arrangement. Kind of acts as a bridge in the album. It's a very pretty element. And it leads into a song In a Dream. Now this is a cool track. I think that there could be, I don't know. I think that the lyrics on this thing are pretty solid. I think they could be slightly better. But what happened on this thing is that it's keyboardist Alan Price from The Animals. And he wrote this song Pastoral. It's part of the score from the movie Oh Lucky Man. And so Graham approached him and was basically like, hey, this is a cool little lick. I'd like to put some vocals to it. And so he sends it to him and, Alan sends it back and he's like, sure. And so it's a simple piano vocal intro, little cello that works in on this thing with some other strings, light bass drum around like minute 15 that works its way in. It's a pretty cool track overall with the background on it. And I like what Graham did with it. Stand Up is your eighth track, back to that rock and roll feel, reminiscent of CSNY on this thing. I really kind of like that Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young feel on this thing. Dig the tone of their guitars, got that thick bass tone that I love, just super rich. This was a song that, it felt like kind of a callback, but again, that's, in my opinion, 81 years old. That's cool. Like if you want to do that for a track, because this album isn't just, full of this stuff. I think it's okay at this moment. It Feels Like Home is your eighth song, your ninth song. Harmonica just shines on this thing. It's got this light country feel to it. More of a kind of like this, like Baroque pop feel to it. It's an interesting dynamic at work here. A lot of nostalgia that I'm feeling on this track. It was pretty evocative. I felt it was well done for that reason. Buddy's Back is your 10th song. Now, there's cool things and bad things about this. Teaming up with, Holly's bandmate Alan Clark on this thing, paying homage to Buddy Holly. So, like, it's got that signature rock and roll feel that he's so well known for. But I think the lyrics are really lacking on this song. I think they're kind of a bummer, and paying homage to an idol. I think that let me pull up some of these because they're kind of rough. Believe Me, Buddy's Back. Buddy Holly was who we love. Right from the heart, his music is still around. Believe me, Buddy's back. And after all these years went by so fast, we brought him with us from the past. I mean, I'm like, really, Graham? Like, it's. I mean, and maybe I don't know. Lyrically, I don't know what's going on there. Maybe he thought that stylistically that's what, Buddy would bring to the table, but I disagree with that as well. Follow Your Heart is your 11th track. Melancholy harmonica, simple acoustic riff on this song. Slow tempo, vocal melody is definitely the highlight on this thing. This is an interesting song. It could be about a lost lover. It could be about David Crosby. I'm going to throw that out there. The lyrics are written nicely, poetically, in a way that, there's that general sense of this song being able to resonate with just about anybody. And so I like that. I like that this song could capture, anything as far as Graham's personal life and what's there. But, I'm going to throw it out there that maybe this song is about David, and it's really sad, the falling out between those two, and knowing that they were making that effort to reconnect and that they weren't able to do it before David's passing is super unfortunate. I Watched It All Come Down is your 12th song, sharp orchestral arrangement. It's very Beatlesque. I like the sentiment of this song, but again, it's another one where I'm just like, I'm struggling with the lyrics. I dig the music, the Beatlesque string arrangement, and like I said, I like, this reflection of just, hey man, like I've been around, I've pretty much seen it all. You consider the time frame that Graham Nash has operated on throughout his career. It's a pretty significant span of time for pop music. And so I dig that, but I just think that from a poetic standpoint, he could be more insightful and just a lot better on this penultimate track. It leads into your final song, When It Comes to You. Got this piano ballad, love song to close, acoustic guitar builds in, but just a tiny bit of percussion to kind of fill things out a little bit in a somewhat minimal song. This album, like I said, there's a lot to love. If you're a Graham Nash fan, I think it's worth giving it a go. And there might be many of you that disagree with me on this. You might be feeling the fire that Graham's feeling a little more than I am, but I'm ultimately going to have to pass on this thing. I think that as far as throwing out the money for the wax, it's just not getting to me the way that I want it to. But I hope it does if you give it a listen. I hope you find this review helpful. Please like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel, do all the things to help us blow this project up in 2023. Stay tuned throughout the week for more album reviews. We'll see you next time on the Beat Sessions.